Hi everyone, Greg Pappas here. I'm back with my Live with Gregory Pappas series on the Pappas Post. Excited to have you watching. I'm very excited to have with me here today a crazy guy, and I'm going to say crazy several times today. A crazy guy named George Moulos. George was born in Sydney, Australia, and he's about to do something that no human being has ever done before. I'm not sure if any human being will do it again after. George is about to march across the country of Greece from north to south. More on his trek later. I want to get to the core, the heart, the soul of who George Moulos is. George, born in Sydney. Take me back 26 years ago. How did we get to this point? Where are you from? Where were you born? Talk to me about your upbringing. What drove you to this point today to want to march across Greece?
That's a good question. So definitely born in Australia, raised in Australia, very Australian in that sense.
In Sydney, right?
In Sydney, Australia.
Shout out to everybody from Sydney. I know I got a lot of readers in Sydney.
But I always felt Greek there, even though, I mean, I'm about as Aussie as Aussies can get. I always felt Greek in high school. My parents, my dad was born in Kithuda. My mum is from Kithuda. Her parents were born in Kithuda. But I always felt more Greek than I felt Australian. And I think a lot of Greeks in Australia, a lot of Greek diaspora sometimes feel that. And when I always did a few trips to Kithuda, to Greece with my family, but when I turned 17, I'd been running some internet businesses from 13 years old while I worked at McDonald's. And
From 13?
From 13. I worked at McDonald's. I unloaded shipping containers for another Kithuian company called Fruitex. And I realized I didn't want to work with my hands. This shit's too hard. I can't do it. I wanted to start making this internet money since I saw everyone doing it. I realized my dad worked with his hands, forklift driver. He was a farmer back in Kithuda. My mum worked with her hands. They had a side gardening business where they did the gardening themselves. My mum helped puts luggage on planes and stamps passports. I'm like, that's hard work, right? And I've seen some hard work, but I'm like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to kind of stop the era of my family tree always working with their hands. I want to progress in the immigrant's journey, essentially. And for me, I found the internet. I grew up more on the internet than in any other media, on TV or anything. For me, it was the internet. It was YouTube. And I found your Gary V's, these entrepreneur American, especially New York entrepreneurs. And I started these internet businesses. And from 13 to 17, some of them found some success. And I had a lot of problems at home. And when they became overwhelming, I left. At 17 years old, and I thought I was a big munga, being able to be on my own, and that fell apart in about 3 weeks. I was living in my black Mazda 2 car because I didn't want to bring any stress onto my Thea Anna, who was letting me stay. But then I knew that I was essentially not. She wasn't being able to live her own life, so I got to get out of here. I felt terrible, so I lived in my car. Then I crashed my car. Then I lost my license. And then I spent 3 days.
A model Greek Australian boy.
Yeah. It's so weird to go from such a solid Greek foundation to not having that. But I look back and as much as I say that I feel that I came from a pretty standard Greek family, I didn't have any grandparents. They all died before my parents were like 5 or 6. So they were orphans pretty young. And most of the Kithuians, and especially most of my family, my extended family, are quite wealthy. Some ridiculously wealthy. And so we didn't grow up in the same areas. So my cousins, my second, third cousins, I met them once or twice in my life sometimes. They don't even know my name, most of them. So we grew up in the south. Not that it's poor, it's Australia. No one's really like poor in Greece, but I didn't know them. So it really was me, my mum, my dad, and my sister, and that was it. And when that fell apart, I really had no one. I had my 1 or 2 mentors, Rowan Coons and Jared Codling back in Australia in business, and then had some friends, but I realized at the end of my high school career, it was my business stuff. I have to go and pursue that. And in 2018, I went broke once or twice. In 2019, when I was 18, I went broke once or twice. And like being broke every now and then got pretty standard for me. And then I really just kind of realized if I'm making this internet money and I'm working really hard and I'm still broke because the expenses in Australia are so high, why don't I just travel the world in the meantime while I get my business together? And so in 2018, I left and traveled all of Europe, did like 20 countries, and I vlogged every day. That's when my video kind of career kind of started, let's say. And I did a vlog every day for 90 days, all across Europe, and I went back to Australia for a few months, then I left forever. From 2019, I never went back to Australia.
So you haven't been back since 2019?
At all. In February
Citizen of the world.
Yeah. And I came to Athens. My cousin lives in Victoria, in Athens, the probably worst suburb in the country. And I spent 3 to 6 months there every year until about 2022, 23. And that for me is home. Victoria is home for me. And that's where I came up. That's where the business started to find some success. And during, let's call it 2019 to now, to 2024 now, I worked extremely hard on my business. I still traveled, since it's cheaper to travel the world than to even live in Australia. And then finally I found the success that I was looking for in business with my business e-commerce brokers, where we help people buy and sell businesses. And I didn't feel anything after that.
George, this is a tremendous story. And you're 26 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, this story that you just told me, leaving home, problems at home, sleeping in your car, going broke how many times, traveling 20-some countries. People don't do this in an entire lifetime.
Yeah.
And you're 26. What comes to mind immediately, because I do a lot of reading of Greek literatures, a very famous quote by Nikos Kazantzakis. And Kazantzakis said that a man needs to cut the rope, to show some craziness, to cut the rope in order to be free. And I think of you. You've cut that rope how many times? You've taken that step, that leap over the cliff. You weren't afraid. What was going through your mind when all these things were happening?
I think for me, I always look at things as plainly as I can, as pragmatically as I can. And I think in those moments, like in 2016 when I left home, I left high school finished, whereas I can go to university, become an investment banker like every other Greek person, every Greek kid in Australia, and climb up through the ranks. And then eventually when I finish that, I'll probably get a job at JP Morgan or whatever, and then climb the ranks. And when I'm 40 and 50, buy a house or two, have a mortgage, and that will be my life. And maybe if I feel comfortable in my 50s, I'll start a business since I have the risk tolerance. And I thought about that. And I had uncles and aunties who have these, they're very successful in property because they just did exactly that. I had an uncle who went to my high school and followed that exact plan. And now he's worth $500 million through property. Okay, he had the boom in Sydney, but I could see the path. And it didn't seem like something that made sense to me. My mum also kind of said to me, like, you get no inheritance. And we're not rich, so even if you did, it's not going to work out for you, right? And I loved that. I said, okay, well, I can go and do my own thing, this entrepreneurship thing, which I've seen some minute success, and if I continue, I think I can do it. But it's that or something I know I won't be happy with. A chance of being happy and something I know I won't be happy. It's stable, it's familiar, I'll have more friends, I'll have more family. This is a lonely road. And I realized, for me, it was always like, it's not even a question. I'm going to go for that other road, because the road less traveled, because I can't pretend like I can't sit in a bad situation and just sit on my hands and wait for something good to maybe happen for me. Nothing good has happened. I think now, especially in the changes I've done in the last 2 years, I am, because I'm someone who I need to work on something. And even my e-commerce brokers business, it was 10, 11 years that I'd been working on it. And even when the success finally came, I felt kind of like ambivalent about it, because I had the lifestyle that it brought me, but I wanted to do more. I knew I could work harder, because it's only that so many 2-3 hours a day of work. I have all this energy, all this potential. I need to do something. And that's when I started to make more videos about Greek entrepreneurship, about history, and that's where the idea for the march came.
I want to go back to that. I love your videos. I actually went down a rabbit hole of watching your Golden Greeks videos, even your Roman emperors videos, something that I never had really an interest in Roman emperors, but you do it in such a fascinating way. You do it in a funny way. You really have a way of keeping the attention of people. What made you start this video series? Is it's all about storytelling, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the storytelling, I think the only real gift I have, the gift I have above all else, I think, is storytelling. Now, whether I'm selling a business, I'm telling the story of this business to convince someone to buy it.
Sure.
The other thing I do is stand-up comedy. I've been doing it 4 or 5 years now. I'm telling stories. I'm just telling stupid stories, giving my perspective on it. And this last video content piece that I do, it's specifically telling stories in a short form. And I think all these series I only started in halfway through this year, 3 or 4 months ago, and
you got millions of views.
Millions.
I mean, a lot of these videos are going viral, and they're showing up on my news feed from random people in all parts of the world.
My friends, my mother-in-law sent me this. I'm like, that's weird. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it was I said midway through this year, I'm like, I'm not kind of living the life I want. The money's there, actually. It's what I thought I always wanted, and I'm so unfulfilled. It's crazy. I said, you know what? I'm going to turn my camera on and just talk about whatever and call it a podcast. And that was my Gringlish podcast, and I talked about an hour worth of history and some other, my years really. And then I clipped one reel from that, 90-second reel, that got 150,000 views. I'm like, I thought that would be the most boring thing. And there's all these people out there who are like, I kind of disagree, I agree, you're so right, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what?
Do you engage with people?
All the time. And sometimes it's like, you don't engage too much.
Even your haters?
The haters I did at the start, but I'm like, I ain't got that energy. Yeah. They aren't paying me. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, because I make so many history videos about Greece, I'm going to encounter a lot of Turkish people.
Of course.
And they're probably the best interactions I have. Because so much of it will be like, well, yes, I know he did this, and that's you're the enemy of my side, but I respect what he did for your country. I'm like, yeah, same for you. And they're like, all right, we're not angry at all. The angriest people, I think, are Greeks against other Greeks. You're not Greek enough. You're too Greek. I'm more Greek than you. And you're like, whatever. Yeah. As long as it's engagement, good, go crazy.
Yeah. Or you get these people online that attack immediately like dogs because you don't speak Greek good enough, or
no one's ever Greek enough.
I really get a headache when there's no Greekometer. I know people in the United States that I grew up with that are fourth generation whose great grandparents came from Greece, and they're just as Greek as anybody else that speaks the language fluently. Language is not a barometer of Greekness. How well you make baklava is not a barometer of Greekness. Whether or not you're married to a Greek is not a barometer of Greekness. It's what we have here. It's what we have in our soul. It's the ideals that we live. And that's why I like what you're doing so much, is because, education, pedia, it's one of the ideals that we espouse as Greeks. We want to learn every single day. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about your online presence is I do learn every day, but I also laugh a bit. I also engage a bit. I disagree sometimes with some of the things that I see, but I really enjoy it. I want to go back to your online business because I know a lot of people are watching. We Greeks are entrepreneurial people. We don't like to work for other people. This is a trend going back 100 and some years. When the Greeks first emigrated to America, they were working as fruit vendors, or they were working as salesmen, and then quickly they gathered their savings and they opened something. Is that something in our DNA?
I think so. I think I looked at his book by Thomas Sowell. It's called Cultures and Conquests, and what makes people the way they are. That's a good question. I think the Greek and even Italian immigrants who came to America and Australia, they lived in such extreme poverty back in the old country, especially the wars, the Balkan Wars, when most of the Greeks came to this North America, that they were so good at saving money up, even if they made so little. They could then start a business, buy a property, and, over 10, 20, 30 years.
Why start a business and not go work in the they did work in factories before, but it just seems like we've got this trend of entrepreneurship. 100 years ago, there were restaurants. You know, in America, some crazy percentage of restaurants and diners were owned by Greeks back in the 50s and 60s. Today, it's the internet, right? You see all these internet entrepreneurs that are working for themselves. I'm trying to get to the core, because you're very much like this. If you were around 100 years ago, you would have emigrated to America or somewhere. You would have worked for a couple years, and then you would have run off and done something innovative at the time.
I think my thesis is, for that, I've thought about it for many years, because you see other immigrant minorities, like Jewish people, they're very successful because they help each other. Greeks don't necessarily help each other in immigrant communities, maybe at the start. Like a Greek meets another Greek in business. They're not there going crazy to help each other. Or come, I'll connect you with this. It's not like that. Actually, I think it's kind of the opposite. They're like, oh, you're doing this, I'm doing this. Like, it's almost a competition. And in respect to working for other people, I think, I know from my experience, and a lot of immigrant stories I know from the States and Australia, you work for someone else, you're like, I can do better than that. I would do it a bit differently. And then eventually you're like, I'm going to do it a bit differently. Like there's a way we look at things. And it's not, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but that's who we are. And for me, I've always embodied that. I mean, the business I have, e-commerce brokers, selling online businesses, being a broker, middleman, like a real estate agent for businesses, that already existed. I just saw how it was done and I didn't like it. So I came in and did it better. I'm not some big, there's no
Any entrepreneur, you find a need and you go in and you take care of that need, you fulfill that need.
I think a lot of the time we would work in shit jobs, Greeks would work in bad jobs, and they were like, I can do this but better. I work in a food shop, I can do a food shop on my own and better. Yeah. And we can find a margin in whatever it might be, and they're like, I'm not going to work for someone else. I think it's always a bit of that too, like, maybe it's ego, whatever, but a lot of the time, that's why there's a Greek restaurant in every city in the West. Every city.
How about every city in the world?
Oh, no, it's Greek crazy.
Restaurant. I was traveling the world many years ago. We were in remote places like Cambodia, Thailand.
What?
Oh, yeah. Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. There's a Greek under every stone, no matter where you go. China and Hong Kong. It's insane how we've spread throughout the world. George, November 6th, you are about to embark on a journey that is going to break the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest crossing of mainland Greece from north to south.
Yeah.
Remember before when I said that Kazantzakis spoke about people needing a little bit of craziness?
Yeah.
This is a lot of craziness.
Yeah.
You are going to be on foot for almost a month.
Yeah, 27 days. Yeah.
Running, walking.
Mix
of running and walking. You're going to sleep overnight.
Yeah,
obviously.
we got a camper van. I can't be transported at any point. I can sleep in it when it's idle, but I can't be transported.
So Guinness is going to be tracking you. They've got some qualifications that you've got to fulfill.
Yeah. So I submitted the application.
You're not going to fly from Alexandroupolis to Thessaloniki on Aegean Airlines.
You can.
They're not sponsoring this video, by the way. But if you want to, email me.
I said this is what I wanted. They're like, look, here's like 10 pages of how you create the evidence for us to then approve it at the end of the thing. So one is GPS coordinates at almost every point, every single place I go. So I have a specific GPS that will give all the waypoints, the exact coordinates. That's one thing. So
those track your speed, and there's an algorithm that will be created that if you go, a day in 100 kilometers, and all of a sudden you do 100 kilometers in an hour, they'll be like, wait, something's wrong here. Exactly.
So you have to have all those waypoints essentially on the GPS files. That's one thing, and KMT files, and then another thing will be my Garmin watch, which will say exactly how many steps and all this stuff. And so all these different systems for tracking. Then on top of that, it's like video and photo evidence. So me taking a photo and a video in front of every police station or church or landmark or sign. That's another thing. Then it's also a big logbook. So every place I go, if I have a cafe, I need the lady to sign, name, number, email, a photo, to show this big logbook.
The 98-year-old lady is going to have an email address, right?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. They don't have an email. The Guinness is going to call them Ella. They were like, what? But like a stack of evidence, and I realized like it's pretty intense
Sure.
level of evidence, and at least 10 minutes of footage every day as well. So where we start, where we stop, where we finish the day. So it's pretty extreme. It's actually more. It feels like more work to get the evidence than to do the walk.
You'll have a cameraman with you.
So cameraman's coming. He's
Journaling all
driving
this.
the camper van. Everything. He's going to be videoing everything, editing, and then publishing a day or two. 24 to 48 hours later every single day. So
Yeah, and you will be publishing on all of your social media channels.
Yeah.
We're putting all the links below. We're also excited because the Pappas Post is officially a media partner. We will be tracking George's journey also. So you'll be able to see all of his footage on his channels, on the Pappas Post channels. You'll be able to interact with him. We won't be expecting live commentary from you, but people are free to reach out to you
100%.
and ask you messages.
Well, like even lives, to be honest, like I'm going to be walking for like 8 to 12 hours a day. So I've got a lot of time to just talk.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that. You really need to be at peace with yourself
Yeah.
to do this.
Yeah.
You're going to be spending a month by yourself, walking in some really rough environments, mountains, villages, forests. As the Greeks say, "Είσαι πολύ καλά με τον εαυτό σου." You must be really good with yourself.
For me, it's I always liked running for that. I mean, I'm like 5 foot nothing.
But what's going on in here?
For me, because of how hard it is for me to run, like, okay, I can run, I'm healthy, but I'm a short bloke, I got short legs, and it was this hard thing that everyone told me I can't do. So when I started to do it, I started running maybe 15 years old, 5Ks, 10Ks, and then worked my way up to a marathon, and I realized this running and this walking thing was this getaway from everything, even the phone. Like a lot of time I won't listen to music, I won't even bring my friend, I have a flip phone. I'm like, if anyone needs me, I'm there. No one ever calls me anyway. So it's just a time to disconnect, especially for me. I'm a Gen Z, I've lived on the internet, I can't disconnect very easily. So to just walk, it's great to disconnect. And I'm so desensitized to everything because of the way I've grown up and the way all kids grow up now. For me, walking in this experience, for me, more than anything, the biggest gratification I think I'll get is resensitizing myself to the world, to walking through a forest, seeing some nature, and not being like, let me take I'm going to be videoing, I understand that, and I want to document, but there's going to be long stretches of nothing. And for me, I have a lot of crazy things that happen in my life that I want to process. That's a good period to just think. And for me, that's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most, just to think. And I think that's what most people are most scared of too, to be in a room or be on their own with no distraction.
Sure.
Because you're with your own thoughts and you can't, that might be scary for some people. For me, I want to run into that.
You know what I'm excited about, because now I've gotten to know you a few times that we've met here in Athens. I've been on your website. I've tracked on your map, is the stories that you're going to learn, the people you're going to meet. You're going through some really interesting parts of northern Greece, and then through Thessaloniki and down into Athens, and then even through the Peloponnese. This isn't the typical tourist journey.
No,
you're going to meet some really interesting people, and because you are such a master storyteller, I'm excited about the interaction that's going to take place. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm also very excited because young people today are very jaded, and what struck me was your decision that this is something much bigger than you, and that you're doing this to support a charity, and you've chosen to support a charity that's very near and dear to my heart, a charity that I founded almost 20 years ago called the Greek America Foundation, and particularly because of all the children's charities that we're supporting here in Greece. And before we go on, I want to be the first person. We have your fundraising page live. I am going to make, your goal is what, $5,000?
Yeah, $5,000.
Which I think we can break it.
I believe so.
All of the diaspora
Starting
Greeks
small,
out
but we'll
there,
see.
if everybody out there even gives $1, $2, $3, it's going to a great cause. We're supporting, we've sent tens of thousands of dollars to charities. George, I don't know if the camera can see this, I'm making a $100 donation right now Here we go. Oh, I am not a robot. Processing. Processing. There we go. Congratulations. Thank you for your donation.
We got it.
Your first $100 donor. I hope I bring you good luck. George is walking, running, marching across the country. How many kilometers?
Be 1,193 kilometers, 741 miles.
741 miles in less than a month.
Yeah.
Doing it for charity, storytelling along the way, educating us. You've captured so much there. You're doing it for a good cause. We're going to learn from you. When you finish in the southern tip of the Peloponnesos, what's that thought that's going to go through your mind?
I thought about it already because I think the last 2 weeks I've been realizing, oh shit, this is happening. And it's kind of a bit of fear came into my mind when I thought about, like, the second day is the longest length because I'm going from Ormenio, it's kind of a flat valley. I have to go over this mountain range. There's like no towns there. It's 69K over this mountain range forest. There's nothing except one road. And that's going to be the longest single day of walking and running. I was like, it's going to also be very cold, like super cold. And I was thinking, like, it really is going to be super gratifying.
This is November. It might even be snowing up
Exactly. And I'm not a cold weather guy. I'm Australian Greek. I don't know cold, any real cold. I think when I get to Mani, that lighthouse of Dernaron, and I'll be looking at Kithira, where I'm from there. I think it's going to be a feeling of just this connect that I've always had between doing something difficult and knowing that I've benefited from it in the way that doing hard things are good for you, and
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, for me, I mean, that's my mom always raised me to believe that when you do tough and hard, difficult things, it'll make you a better person. And for me, I just want experiences. Like, for me, life is just so much about having great experiences, and I'm just not a materialistic dude. I wish that made me happy, but it doesn't. For me, I'm, for better or for worse, a patriot. I love this country like crazy, and I want to hear these stories. I love sitting down with old people. Maybe it's because I never had grandparents, but I love sitting down with old people and saying, hey, like, what's this story? What's that story? And just sitting there, getting a bit of wisdom. I tell them some of my problems. They're like, I would do this. I'm like, thank you. Like, I want to have those experiences. And I think by the end of the journey, I think the one thing I know I'll think this, because I usually do. I'll get to the end. I'll be like, what's next? What's the next journey?
Well, we know what's next. You said you're going to be at the tip of Mani looking at Kithira.
Yeah.
I think
I'm going to
swimming
swim.
to Kithira.
Yeah.
How many kilometers?
It's 10K. It's not that
10K?
hard. It's not that difficult. It's about 4 or 5 hours of swimming.
A friend of mine over the past weekend just swam. Shout out to Achilles. Congratulations, Achilles. Just swam from Portogelli to Spetses.
Oh, wow.
It's 3 kilometers.
Yeah.
Did it in about an hour and a half.
But the currents between these islands are pretty intense.
Sure.
So it's tough.
And then after that, I'm challenging you from now, and we will be the sponsors. I want you to march across the United States from New York to Los Angeles. If any of you see on the map a location that is your town, your village, your papu, your yaya, your family, and you have any tips for George, shoot him a message. We love to get these stories out there and told, and we love to build this community of support around him, this virtual community. So if you're in Australia or you're in California and your papu or your yaya or your cousin has a coffee shop in Corinth and you want to give him a frappe metrio along the way to give him that boost, shoot some messages to him, get online, follow his social media channels, and let's really build a global community of support for this crazy guy that is deciding to do something much bigger than him. We need more. You know, George, I'm a big proponent of impact, and I think we talked about this the other day. You are a great example of something that I talk about all the time. You know, you don't have to be the Onassis Foundation or the Niarchos Foundation or a millionaire or a billionaire to do good in this community. You can really do good even wherever your arm reaches. Anybody, a housewife, a banker, a student, we all have the potential to do good. You're taking it one step or a million steps further But you're such a great example of, here's a young guy who, instead of going out on dates and going out and partying and going out and trying to make money to buy fast cars, which that's great. Do that. Get your cars, get your girlfriends, get your boyfriends. You're doing something much bigger than you. And me personally, I'm proud of you. I'm twice your age, and I'm very proud that young people like you exist. We need more of you out there. What is your message for the 20-somethings out there that are watching this?
I think the message is that it's possible. I think, especially Greeks in Greece, my generation, and even the older, people in their 30s, they've kind of been robbed of this huge opportunity to grow and be in a flourishing country. So they have this almost hopelessness, and it sucks. And I felt that because I moved here in 2018, peak of the crisis, and I also had no money. But if I have one message, it's like things are possible. If I look at where I came from to where I am now, you'd be delusional to be at that start of that journey and think I can do it's just completely delusional. And maybe it's a bit of delusion to think I can go from where I started to where I am, or to walk across the country.
Isn't that what we said early on?
Yeah, you got to be crazy.
The quote,
I think you need to be.
That you need craziness to cut the rope
Exactly.
in order to be free.
And I think so much of the greatest stories of Greek history have been people who were willing to do something that's a bit crazy for a better life. And I think young Greek people, because of the last 20 years of the country, they don't feel it's possible. But I think it's possible more now with the gift of the internet, with the gift of most young people being able to speak English, start any sort of business or content online. I think it's more possible now than ever for anybody from any social class to be able to do anything. And I think my story shows that. I've come from absolutely nothing. Low status, no money, no connections, Victoria.
Child of immigrants.
It's, for me, if I can do it, holy shit, anybody can do it. Especially people who have more support, more money, more connections, maybe more determination, and maybe they're smarter than me too. I think it's amazing how much opportunity there is. Everyone's more worried. I think a lot of Greek people and young people is worried about everything's too saturated. There's not enough opportunity. There is so much opportunity. It's almost, I want to do more things. I might do a couple things now, but I just want to do more and more and more. And I feel that, I want to do them correctly, but I think I'm so excited about the future when I didn't used to be, but the more I take action, the more things I do, the more excited I am. Not the less excited I am. It's
that search of happiness we were talking about before.
Yeah. And a lot of the time it feels like it's, you're stabbing in the dark at stuff, but eventually you're going to find things that other people are nerdy about with you. Like this history stuff, even this March Across Greece, I thought this is going to be me and my friend. No one's going to care. And then talking to some people that are passionate about you, they like this lady from Ert, who I knew, she's like, you got to go to this restaurant, they have a cool story, you got to tell them 2 days ahead to get the goat ready. I'm like, this support is crazy that people want to help in this journey. And I think, there's so many young people in Greece who are so passionate about something, anything. And I think if they just had the smallest inkling of support from other people, from the world, they would do it. They would take action on that. And to be honest, that's where all this started. I always have crazy ideas, but when I was in Money on a holiday with my mum in Money a few months ago, and I said, I'm just sitting there. I always look at Google Maps. I like to look at Google Maps, find some historical sites. When I'm on call sometimes, I go to my mum, I go, do you reckon anyone's walked from like the most northern tip of Greece to Money? She's like, I don't know. I go, maybe an hour later, I'm like, imagine if I walked that. And my mum, it's a funny thing, and my mum is kind of typical of Greek immigrant mothers, because when I was 14, 15, I wanted to start a marketing agency, a business. She goes, why would anyone hire you? You're a nobody. And that hurt, I'll be honest.
Of course.
It hurt.
That's the job of Greek mothers, though.
Because
grounded.
She wants me to study and do the thing, and I get that. But I did it anyway, and it went well. And then I did that with about 5, 6 other things. And she's at the point where she's like, and she said this in Money, she goes, George, if you want to do that, you could probably do it. I said,
She came around.
I was like, fuck, if my mum thinks I can do it, I probably can do it. So from there, I was like, well, it's this thing that it's this very hard thing that sounds crazy and ridiculous, but now I have to do it because it's this scary object. I need to run towards it, and it would prove a point to myself, maybe. But I think it all starts with a bit of support from community, family, friends, and for young people that might not exist, but there are people out there who will support you, who will believe in your vision.
And we're going to prove that, right? We're going to support you. We're going to donate to the charity that you've chosen to support. We're going to get behind you, follow your social media channels, cheer you along the way, but also in advance, as we said, if you have any tips, take a look at the map. We've got the map in the links. We've got the website in the links.
I'm happy to divert. I'm happy to walk extra kilometers to get to a cool place.
Let's get you all the way over. Next thing you know, you'll be doing it over 2 months.
2 months, thank you.
Very, very excited to watch this journey unfold. Follow the Pappas Post, follow George's social media channels, and we will be back with you, hopefully doing some lives in November. And you're starting in November and ending
5 December.
December 5th.
Plan,
Great. Thank you all for watching.